what you see is the real person. There's no more hormones in your brain.
You can't manage conflict successfully if you don't know how to communicate.
A man is a woman's rock, and a woman is a man's weakness.
Whatever comes out is sufficient for the moment. That's ridiculous. Like, that's getting us in more problems.
Because to me, we're just creating a space where men can speak to other men without anybody judging them for what they have to say.
That's true. And I believe that we're not even taught that there can be and should be some level of balance.
And the most majority of people, men are supposed to be masculine and women are supposed to be feminine.
The bond that you're creating between the two people, I've seen what it looks like being worked on at all.
And I think that in today's world, we don't have a lot of spaces that men can be emotional with other men.
This is the Nico Lagan Show. Frankly, motivation is bullshit. What you need is discipline, and your mindset is the difference between success and failure. Warning. Warning. This show contains explicit content. Listener discretion is advised. Real, raw, and shooting you straight. This is the Nico Lagan Show. And now your host, Nico.
So I have the pleasure to be with Olivier Marcelle is the proper way to say your name, but how do you say so?
I love it.
How do you say your name?
Oliver Marcelle, but I like that better.
Yeah, because it's French, right? So tell us who you are, what you do, and why the hell do you do it?
Man, inner city kid who has had some life experiences and found out later on in life that my purpose is to share those life experiences, you know, not really understanding why all this stuff was happening until later on in life, man. And so that's brought me to the season of life that I'm in, where I share my experience in hopes that it will encourage and inspire others who are on similar parts of that journey that I went through.
So your wife and you specialize in helping couple who are experiencing relationship issues.
Yeah, indeed.
And you coach them into hopefully saving their marriage. What makes you such a professional in what you do? Why should people listen to you?
Man, so we'll go all the way back. So right now, as we're recording this, this is year 22, well, year 23 for me,
Yeah.
which will end in 23 years of marriage, knowing her for 27, almost 28 years. The beginning of that, bro, like I got married for the wrong reasons, selfish guy, thinking about what I can get out of it, and everything that was wrong about who I was as a man manifested in that relationship. And so those first let's call it 2.5 years, it was just rocky seas, man. And then I had a turnaround moment about 18 months into my marriage that made me face a different direction. And from that point on, I was trying to figure this thing out, man, trying to be the best man that I could be for myself. And then that trickled down into my relationship. And so now, to answer your question, I've seen what it looks like to not communicate on an extraordinary level. I've seen what it looks like to not recover from conflict, not even manage it, let alone recover. And I've seen what it looks like for your intimate life, and not just sex, but just the bond that you're creating between the two people.
Yeah.
I've seen what it looks like when that is not being worked on at all.
So we're in Quincy, Washington right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're here at a men's convention. The whole goal, you're one of the keynote speakers. You're just about to go in, actually.
Yeah.
Just about to go on stage. Why are you here? Why do you think that what you do helps men?
Good question. Because we're in an age right now where there's so much confusion around what a good man is.
Oh, I like that.
And we're also in an age where there are men who are searching
Oh, yes.
for what those answers are.
Agreed.
And anytime I can find myself in a space where men are actually coming in the door like, hey, I need to hear what you have to say because the part of the journey that I'm on demands that I get some level of instruction. I'm going to find myself there.
It's to me, it's amazing. Yes, you should clip it on your shirt. I didn't think because we were wearing T-shirts earlier. But if you leave it there, oh yeah, that's even better.
Okay.
For the people listening to this, is because I'm just recording podcasts on the go with not a lot of equipment, so we're using wireless microphones.
Make sure
to
it
do
does. We'll make sure it doesn't
Oh no, it'll be
touch
fine.
my shirt.
Yeah, but it'll be fine.
Okay.
So again, we're at a men's convention. We want the whole goal is to help men with all aspects of their lives, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that it's something that's forgotten in society today? And I'm not necessarily talking about mental health per se, but I believe, and you tell me what you think about it, but I believe that men are so used to being good men and grinding away and just doing what's expected of them without complaining, because let's not lie to each other. Men do jobs they don't like to be the provider that they need to be, because as a man, being a protector and a provider are your two main duties. But then when they hit their 40s, because a lot of the guys here are in their mid 30s to 50, and they really seem to resonate with the type of things that we're talking about.
Right.
But would you say that it's forgotten in society, that it's something that needs to come out more, where we're just creating, because to me, we're just creating a space where men can speak to other men without anybody judging them for what they have to say.
Right. I do believe it's forgotten. I believe I'll use this word. I believe it's ignored.
You know what? Thank you. That's an even better word.
I believe it's ignored. And because it's ignored, we don't make it a priority.
Yeah.
You know, we go on with our life. We go on with the grind. We go on with the things that we need to do so that we can make it through those moments. But because it's ignored, we're not intentional about going beyond that, to really grow as a man, to really evolve as a man, and to take that evolution to bring up the next guy.
You know, I've pondered that a lot, and I came to the conclusion that it's our own fault too. Like, there's nobody else to blame for the fact that we're ignored. You know what? I'll use your word from now on. I like it. It's our own fault that we're ignored, because if we don't take care of ourselves, you know what I was saying yesterday, that you need to be selfish if you want to become better.
Right.
Because it's going to help you eventually to become more selfless.
Right.
But you need to take care of yourself. Just the same thing as we were talking at the restaurant yesterday. Physical fitness is upon you. It's something that it's in your control to change. And if you don't take the responsibility, it's your fault.
Right.
If you're not well within your own body.
Right.
Same way as your mental health. Because I know I talk a lot about temperament. I talk a lot about temperance, where self-control when it comes to your emotions is extremely important. But there's always that misconception that what I'm saying is that men should not be emotional. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that men should know the difference between when they can be emotional and when they cannot.
Right.
And I think that in today's world, we don't have a lot of spaces that men can be emotional with other men.
Yeah.
We just keep it bottled up. We either talk about it too much in all the wrong places, or we don't have the space to talk about it at all.
That's true. And I believe that we're not even taught that there can be and should be some level of balance in that area.
Sure.
Like the story you told when you got up, when you talked about the guy cutting you off.
Yeah.
And you got out the car.
Yeah.
But you chose to manage those emotions in a certain way.
Yeah.
We're not even taught that. No. We're just taught that whatever comes out is sufficient for the moment. And that's ridiculous. Like, that's getting us in more problems.
But that's the feminine approach. There's one thing I love to say. People don't like to hear it, but my girlfriend and I agree with this, and this is one of the reasons we're together. I'm not the emotional. I have more control over my emotions than she does. But being emotional is a very feminine energy.
Yeah.
Being more stoic, more tempered is a very masculine energy. And, you know, I don't know where I heard this. Somebody told me that I put two expressions together, but I really like what it says. But how I explain it, a man is a woman's rock, and a woman is a man's weakness.
Okay.
So to me, I laugh about it with my girlfriend because when I'm not emotional enough for her, I'm like, what would you rather? Would you rather I'm the way I am, or would you rather I be like another woman in our relationship? She's like, oh hell no, oh hell no.
Right.
We don't need two of me in this relationship. We
Right.
need one opposite of each other so that it mellows us out. I don't believe that women and men complete each other. I believe
okay.
that men and women complement
I like
each
that
other,
word.
and there's a big difference.
There
There's
is
a massive
huge difference.
because I don't need a woman to be complete.
And if you do, that speaks to a whole nother set of problems.
You got a lot of work to do.
Right. That speaks to a whole nother set of issues if you need somebody to complete you. And it's interesting because there are a lot of people who are bucking against that concept that women have that emotional undertone.
Of course they do. They always have.
There's always this, what about, right? But that's true, man. And that balance is what is necessary for a relationship to actually thrive.
Think about the most beautiful woman you've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Think about the most attractive woman you've ever encountered. And tell me that she was not a living representation of feminism in a way where she was living in her feminine energy. Mm-hmm. Not feminism as that whatever you want to call that movement that we're seeing today, but really the essence of femininity.
Right.
Is there something more beautiful than an extremely feminine woman that embraces her emotions?
Nothing.
Because when you think about it, emotions is in the present. Mm-hmm. When a woman is herself, she is living 100% in the present. And you get to see her whole feminine right there. It doesn't, anything else matters. It's just her being her, singing and dancing in the kitchen, for example, or just singing and dancing when she doesn't realize that anybody else is there except her.
Right.
Is there something more beautiful than that?
It's incredible. And we're in a society that's trying to squash that.
Yep.
So it's trying to turn them into the militant, regimented alpha, and then turn us into the emotional, unscripted, undisciplined beta.
Yep.
And it's trashing society.
And
like it's killing society, bro.
what I find that's ironic in this is they complain, like feminists complain that men should be more emotional and women can be as tough as men. But they tend to not realize that it's all about energy. If a man is more feminine by nature, and that's okay, there's more feminine men and there's nothing wrong with that. If you're living your nature, so be it. Live who you are. But I guarantee you that man will be with a more masculine woman. And the same way, if a woman that's more of a tomboy, that has more masculine energy, will be looking for more feminine men. But the concept is still the same. There's a very masculine energy. There's a very feminine energy, and they go together.
I like that you said that. That's a phenomenal way to put it.
Because it's the same thing.
Because it is about energy.
Look at gay couple. You can have two women together.
Yep.
There's always the joke that one's more of a butch and the other one's more feminine.
Yep.
So it doesn't. We associate energy with sex,
right?
With gender.
We're looking at the gender, right?
But it's how it's always been.
Yeah.
Because the vast majority, I don't talk about concepts for the exceptions. I talk about principles and context for the majority of people. And the most majority of people, men are supposed to be masculine and women are supposed to be feminine. But it's always like, no matter if it's a heterosexual couple or same-sex couple, it's always true.
Those two energy components have to be present.
You have to.
They have to,
you don't
or it
see
doesn't work.
Two extreme feminine energy together or two extremely masculine energy together. I couldn't imagine being with somebody like me. I would want to kill that guy.
Bro.
I would want to kill that guy.
Yeah. Same, yeah.
Is that something in your practice, is that something that you see being a problem? Is that something that you encounter where the woman is trying to be too masculine, or at least she dips into her masculine energy too much without going back to the feminine? Because You can play around with those energies, right?
Yeah, you can play around with them. And I think there's actually some room to kind of morph back and forth.
I agree.
Based on the scenario.
Yep.
But to answer your question, yes, I do see, not often, not as much, but I do see cases where, because the man is not living fully in who he should be as a good man.
Oh, snap.
That the woman feels like she has to overcompensate.
So you know what? Let me rephrase that question. Mm-hmm. Do you find that women are looking for more masculine men, and one of the biggest problem in their couple is the fact that their man is not masculine enough?
That's happening. I see that happening. But here's what's crazy. The other side of that coin is that they don't know how to manage that dynamic. So what the woman essentially starts doing is treating the man in a way that will never motivate them to step up to the plate in the first place.
So basically you're saying it's a communication problem.
Yeah.
Is that the biggest problem?
That's the biggest. That's number one. There's three that we deal with the most, but that's at the top.
What are the three?
Communication.
Yeah.
Conflict management.
Sure.
Intimacy building.
So you want to elaborate on those three?
Yeah. So typically in the communication space, there's so much ambiguity.
Okay.
There's so many cases where there are expectations that are drawn up but aren't expressed.
Okay.
There are feelings that are felt that just rot into resentment, but they're never articulated.
Okay.
There are conversations that should have happened on the front end so that strategy could be crafted.
Yeah.
Those conversations don't happen. Now we're digging out of a hole. So we're seeing a lot of that in the communication space. That creates conflict. You can't manage conflict successfully if you don't know how to communicate. So now we're already behind the eight ball.
Yeah.
They don't recognize the fact that conflict is brewing, or when they do recognize it, because they can't communicate, they don't articulate it, which now broadens the recovery time of them even being able to get through the conflict. And all of that kills intimacy, 100%. And not just sex, but just the bond that's necessary, the experiential intimacy piece that bonds you together, that actually helps to fuel your motivation, if you will, to be great in those other areas because you see the result.
Do you think that there's a problem with aligning values nowadays? Because personally, from an outside perspective, if I look at, I've been married before and I'm divorced. Mm-hmm. If I can tell the main reason, I had my faults, she had her faults. Mm-hmm. It's a 50-50%. It's both of our faults.
Right.
But looking back right now as being older, as hopefully a bit wiser than I was, I can say that the biggest issue between my ex-wife and I was that I chose with my penis and not with my values. Mm-hmm. I chose with my emotions instead of realizing or still admitting to myself back then that love is a choice that you take every single day when you get up, that I confused lust with love. Mm-hmm. But lust within 6 months to 18 months is completely gone.
Right.
It is replaced by the hormones, the dopamine that are playing with your head will be released so that you like the other person because it's new, it's exciting, everything's cool.
Right.
But once that subsides, what you see is the real person. There's no more hormones fucking with your brain.
Right.
So would you say that choosing values, because I'm thinking about a young man, for example. Like I'm thinking about a young man that's 24, 25 years old, has his career on the go, like he's trying to become a provider for his future family. Mm-hmm. How would he choose? How would you suggest that a young man that's trying to become a good man choose his partner, his life partner?
Man, there's something that I tell guys often. Don't attempt to demand something you haven't first developed.
That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, because who you described just now was me.
Okay.
That's how I got into my marriage.
Yeah.
I chose based on all the things that I felt like were beneficial to me in the moment.
What excited you, basically?
Right. I wasn't thinking about any kinds of things that would allow me to build a successful relationship. I wasn't even thinking about building anything. I was just living in the moment. And I felt like that was the right choice for the right time.
Yeah.
Because it would benefit me in the way that I wanted to be benefited. So I wasn't even thinking about what she would get out of it.
So how do values come into play? Because to me, values are everything. If you, because first, as you said earlier, you need to know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You need to discover for yourself what your values are. What are the
Yeah.
things that you cannot live without,
Mm-hmm.
and that you're not ready to compromise on.
Right.
Then you find somebody that matches, that their values are the same as yours. Then you can consider a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
How important do you agree that those are? Probably, to me, they're the most important things, are values.
I think it's very important because then you don't have anything to point back to. You're trying to build something with no foundation. There's no alignment, right? So if you think about a car, if your alignment is trash, it doesn't matter how fantastic the car looks.
Yeah.
If your alignment is trash, the ride is trash. The quality of the ride is done, right? It's the same thing. No values, you have nothing to point back to. You can only go but so far until somebody is like, either this isn't working or we're just going about it solo, freestyling it. And how long can you do that in a successful relationship? How long can you maintain a relationship or even build a successful one when we're just freestyling?
That's a good question. I don't think it's not going to last.
I don't think it's sustainable because here's the thing. The beauty of freestyling is that it affords me the opportunity to not have to sustain anything long term. Hence the reason why I could have, 50 girls in, 6 months, because I don't got to be responsible for any of them. No values. I can do that all day long. You know what I mean? But if I'm trying to build, that's like, jumping into a empty swimming pool.
Oh, that's good. That hurts, man. One of the things that I believe, because I'm always thinking young men, like I want to help young men, and I'm always thinking about what is impacting them. And one of the things that keeps on coming up to my mind, and I see it more and more, like people are starting to talk more and more about it, is the impact of pornography have on couples, have on intimacy, have on sexual relationship, and especially expectations of what a real sexual experience is with somebody where love is involved, right? Is that something you deal with within your practice? Do people admit, like, it's especially men, but they're starting to show that more and more women are addicted to porn as well?
Yeah.
But do you see that as a problem? Like, do you see it more and more with the couples that you deal with?
I see it as a problem.
Yeah.
But I also see where people don't admit it.
Oh yeah, of course.
So I've seen where there are intimacy issues.
Yeah.
And clearly the signs are all there, but they're not going to come out and be like, okay, this is the reason why there are intimacy issues. They're always pointing the finger at somebody else. Well, she doesn't do this, or he doesn't do that, or he's not paying that much attention to me, or she doesn't talk to me right, which are factors, let's be clear.
Yeah.
But underneath all of that, typically, it's some kind of sexual deviation in terms of how they view sexually intimate relationships.
So they're more of a side effect than the root problem, is what you're saying.
Right. And so now you got porn. People turn to porn for just because they're greedy. They just want more.
Sure.
Or they are explorative, have expectations, going back to the communication thing, that were never articulated.
Sure.
So I don't know really if she's into that. Doesn't seem like she is. I'm just going to guess without talking to her. So I'm going to get it over here. Then you got folk who, they live in that world so long that now this person doesn't even meet that need, not even psychologically. So we're not even looking at the person and like, man, I want to smash that. They're not even looking at it that way now because everything comes from over here. Hence the whole thing that we were talking about earlier with when there's a lot of folk dealing with ED, there's a lot of folk dealing with some things that you can point back to.
Yeah.
Some psychological scenarios that are playing out because they've just dipped into that world so long that the rest of this stuff doesn't even equate. Doesn't even
align
yeah.
anymore either. It doesn't align
Right.
with anything.
Yeah.
What's the biggest complaint that you hear from couples? Like, what's the biggest complaint a woman complains about her husband? What's the biggest complaint?
He doesn't talk to me. That's the biggest complaint that we're getting. Now, when you unpack that, the layers of that, it takes you down different roads.
Yeah.
But a lot of women are like, oh, he doesn't really share with me what's going on, or he doesn't, I don't know how he's feeling about this and that, or I have to guess this and this and this, And when you unpack that, I tell people all the time, the behaviors that you see,
Yeah.
there's an underlying need that aligns with that behavior. So yeah, we can address the fact all day that he's not talking to you, but what's the need? You want to be seen, or you want to be wanted, or you feel you have to be needed, or whatever it is, right? We got to address that. I can get him to talk to you more, but if he's still not meeting the fact that, if he's still not making you feel like you're attractive, or if he's still not making you feel like you're needed, or he doesn't make you feel like you're necessary or valued or seen, that's a big word I hear a lot of people say. It doesn't matter if he's talking to you more. It's just more words to listen to. You're still not getting the need met.
You're giving him more reason to be pissed off at you.
Right. Right.
What would you say is the number one thing men complain about?
It varies for us. The intimacy piece, and sexual intimacy in particular, sometimes is a big thing.
In what way?
In terms of frequency.
Okay, it's not enough.
So I'm not getting it enough, right? That's a big one. Respect is a huge one. I maybe even flip those two. That men just don't feel like their wives are respecting them. They feel like everything that they do is either shot down or there's some override switch at some point. And so they just kind of give up. Like, I'm not even going to include you in any decisions, or I'm not even going to consult you. I'm just going to live my life because you're not going to respect me one way or the other.
You're not. So it's, again, communication problem.
Exactly.
And you're touching sexual because I'm not surprised.
Yeah. That's a big one. The frequency thing.
So do you recommend to the people that you coach, the couple that you coach, to do it more often?
So I don't go that route off a lot. It depends on what the underlying, again, that action or lack of sex points to something else.
So it's an intimacy problem.
It depends on what it points to.
Yeah.
How I go about it. We're really big on experiential intimacy, because my thing is, I say to guys all the time, sex is like the roof of the house.
Yep.
And I'm not a contractor, but I've never seen a house built from the roof down.
Yeah.
So you can get mad of the fact that there's no roof, but you don't got nothing to put it on.
Yeah.
So let's deal with how we can get this thing holistically right.
Yeah.
So that you can enjoy being on the roof as much as you want.
I dated this girl for a while, and she was very in touch with her feminine side. She was very strong on energy. And there's sometimes I would try something and she would shut me down. But the way she would explain it is, you haven't put me in the mood to be there. And this to me was very enlightening. I really appreciated, if there's one thing that I learned from that relationship, it's that. She's not shutting me down because she doesn't want me.
Right.
She's shutting me down because I did not make an effort to be intimate with her first, to make her feel like she's needed, she's wanted, that I desire her, which is what women want in order to be turned on.
Right.
But that was very enlightening, because that might be exactly the problem that every man out there go through, but it's a 50-50 responsibility. The guy does not know why, but he's not asking the question. And the woman is probably not even able to put it into words to explain to her husband. So instead she just says,
acts out.
Yeah, I'm not interested. The man turns around, goes in the bathroom and jerks off.
Does what he needs to do.
Yeah. Instead of simply saying, you know what? Nick, you did not turn me on. This is how you turn me on. If you want me to be turned on, this is what you need to do.
Yep, we go through that quite often with
I would
couples,
imagine
making
so.
sure that their communication gets to a point where they're not leaving anything to chance. And then I often pull the husbands aside and appeal to the very logical, systematic, strategic side of them. And be like, listen, bro, there's a cause and effect here.
Of course.
Like, if you do ABC, there's a better chance that DEF is going to happen. But you buck against ABC because you don't feel like it's necessary. And then you're angry because DEF didn't happen. Like, bro, you don't even do that on your job.
Yeah.
You don't do that in your career. You don't do that with your business. There's a strategic plan that you work off of so that you can scale, so that you can grow, so that you can receive the stuff that you set out to receive when you started. Do the same thing at home, bro.
If there's one advice that you can give to a young man on relationship, on long-term relationship, what would it be?
Understand it's a process. I see so many couples get into it. I'll say it like this. A guy told my wife and I a long time ago, he said, people equate getting married to reaching the pinnacle of Mount Everest. He was like, man, when you say I do, you're just arriving at base camp. Understand it's a process, and then allow that to shape your perspective, which will then shape your approach. Because if you understand it's a process, there's some things I'm going to have to learn. There's some things I might have to make adjustments with. There's some things that I might have to take away. There's some things I might have to add in order to make sure I shape this thing the way that it needs to be shaped. And if you know that going in, instead of like, well, she should be doing this or he should be doing that from jump, you're going to save yourself a lot of headache.
I'm going to leave it at that, man. Brother, it was awesome meeting you here.
Indeed, bro.
I'm thanks for taking the time, man. That was awesome.
You've been listening to the Nico Lagan Show. Nico has been involved in the martial arts for 20 years. He's a Muay Thai coach, focus coach, podcaster, and sought-after public speaker. We hope you've enjoyed the show, and we hope you've gotten some useful and practical information. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, find us on Facebook and Instagram at Coach Nico Lagan and on YouTube at The Nico Lagan Show. See you next time.